You remember that sound, don't you? That low, cozy hum of the old television warming up, the soft click before the screen came alive. Then, boom! Colors burst across the glass like fireworks trapped inside a box. The living room glowed with that warm blue haze only a chunky CRT could make. The blinds were half open, sunlight cutting through the dust, tiny sparkles dancing in the air. You sat cross-legged on the carpet, cereal bowl in your lap, milk just starting to turn warm. Somewhere behind you, Mom's coffee percolated, that rich, comforting smell mixing with sugary Fruit Loops and the faint scent of the remote's warm plastic. Maybe your little brother was hollering, "It's starting!" as that theme song hit, drums, trumpets, synths, and pure joy. Saturday mornings weren't just mornings back then, they were sacred. The world outside could wait. Homework, chores, even breakfast dishes. For a couple of golden hours, life stopped, and it was just you and your cartoons. And what a lineup it was! The 1990s, that magical decade when animation had guts. Shows about stone-winged heroes, sewer-dwelling turtles, talking ducks in sunglasses, and rabbits flying fighter jets. Every channel was a portal, each one carrying its own smell, sound, and soul. Every show had its flavor, a bit of adventure, a touch of weird, a pinch of mystery, and a whole lot of heart. They made us laugh until our sides hurt, spooked us just enough to hide under a blanket, and sometimes, without us even knowing, taught us about bravery, kindness, and friendship. And then they faded away, one by one, swallowed by the speed of newer things, shinier graphics, louder ads, shorter attention spans. But they never really left, did they? They're still here, tucked inside old VHS boxes, buried in attic corners, floating somewhere between memory and melody. So tonight, or maybe this Saturday morning, pour yourself a bowl of your favorite cereal, pull up that old couch cushion, and let's travel back. Back to the days when cartoons were more than just shows, they were our world. Because in the next few minutes, we're unlocking those lost memories together. 25 forgotten cartoons from the 1990s that still live in the corners of your heart. So sit back, relax, and if this takes you home, hit that subscribe button, my friend. Let's keep these memories alive, one Saturday morning at a time. Pirates of Darkwater. Close your eyes and picture this. It's 1991. You've just flipped on the TV, and before you can even take a bite of cereal, the screen fills with swirling black oceans and eerie purple skies. The title rises, Pirates of Darkwater. You can almost smell the salt air and feel the damp chill of those stormy waves. Back then, cartoons weren't afraid to go dark, and this one really went there. Hanna-Barbera poured soul into it, every frame hand-painted in moody golds and shadowy blues. The hero, Ren, wasn't your typical loudmouth kids character. He carried a quiet sadness, a destiny too heavy for one young prince. The action was bold, the voice acting rich, and the world felt real, almost too real for Saturday morning. But before the quest to collect the 13 treasures could finish, the show just stopped. No grand finale, no wrap-up, just silence. And for kids who followed every wave and whispered prophecy, it was like losing a story mid-sentence. Even today, when you catch a glimpse of dark ocean water under moonlight, you might just think of it, that forgotten masterpiece swallowed by time. 2. Swat Kats, the Radical Squadron. You knew things were about to get serious when you heard that jet roar. Swat Kats, the Radical Squadron, wasn't just a cartoon. It was pure, unfiltered 90s cool. 2 ex-fighter pilots turned vigilantes, armed with attitude, gadgets, and the most kick-butt jet you'd ever seen. The Turbo Cat. That sound, a mix between thunder and rebellion. Every episode opened like a rock concert, guitars wailing, engines roaring, Megacat City lit up like Gotham on caffeine. The art style was sharp, kinetic, and bold, drawn with the swagger of a comic book panel come alive. You could feel the speed, almost hear the air tearing apart as the Turbocat shot across the skyline. But what made Swat Kats special wasn't just the action. It had grit, a world that felt older, tougher. The villains weren't just bad guys, they had stories, scars, and style. It was one of the rare shows that treated kids like they could handle intensity, like we could take a little danger with our Saturday cereal. Then, one day, it was gone. Rumors said it was too violent. Imagine that, too exciting for TV. Still, decades later, you can hear that jet in your head, cutting through the clouds. The Swat Kats didn't just fly, they burned across our imaginations. 3. The Tick.
Spoon? If you just said that out loud, then you already know. The Tick wasn't your average superhero. He was a muscle-bound goofball with the heart of a poet and the brain of a toaster oven. And somehow, that was perfect. The first time he leapt off that skyscraper with his sidekick Arthur, a nervous accountant in a moth costume, you couldn't help but laugh and cheer. The city was a playground of nonsense. Villains named Chairface Chippendale, ninjas hiding in laundromats, and monologues that made zero sense but somehow felt profound. The Tick's world was chaos wrapped in sincerity. He believed in justice with such unshakable optimism that you couldn't help believing too. His booming voice filled living rooms everywhere, preaching nonsense with heroic conviction. Evil is just plain stupid. But The Tick was a show ahead of its time, part parody, part philosophy. Its humor was too clever, its heart too strange for the mainstream. Networks shuffled it around until it quietly disappeared. Still, if you ever stumble upon a rerun or hear that battle cry echo in your mind, you can't help but grin. The Tick reminded us that being heroic wasn't about being perfect, it was about being ridiculous and brave anyway. 4. Gargoyles. There was something hauntingly beautiful about Gargoyles. The moment that opening thunder rolled, you knew you weren't watching an ordinary cartoon. The night sky cracked open with lightning, and there they were, stone figures awakening, wings unfurling, eyes glowing that eerie shade of blue. The music alone sent shivers down your spine. Premiering in 1994, Gargoyles wasn't just another Disney show, it was Shakespeare with claws. It had tragedy, destiny, betrayal, all wrapped in a world of shadow and rain-soaked rooftops. Goliath, the noble leader, spoke like a knight out of time, a warrior burdened with centuries of sorrow. Even the villains were layered, complex, cunning, sometimes heartbreakingly human. You could almost feel the texture of the stone, the cold wind sweeping over New York City as they soared through the night. It was dark, yes, but it made kids feel brave, like we were ready to face things that scared us, as long as someone like Goliath was watching overhead. And then, just as it soared, it vanished. Ratings dropped, the network shuffled it, and the magic crumbled to dust. But every so often, when a storm rolls in and lightning flickers against the clouds, you half expect to see them, those ancient protectors, still guarding us from the shadows. 5. Mighty Max. You remember those tiny plastic playsets, right? Little pocket worlds that opened up to reveal secret chambers and monster battles. Mighty Max took that toy and turned it into something huge. A time-traveling, dimension-hopping adventure that was equal parts funny and terrifying. The show hit TV in 1993, but it felt like it came from another realm. Max, this whiz-cracking kid with a red cap, was chosen to save the world. No training, no superpowers, just smarts and bravery. His companions were Virgil, a talking bird who quoted ancient prophecy, and Norman, a warrior built like a wall. Together, they faced creatures straight out of nightmares, lava beasts, zombie armies, gods of chaos. You could almost hear the echo of their footsteps in ancient ruins, smell the dust and danger in every temple they explored. And when the final episode came, that mind-bending loop where time reset itself, it blew young minds everywhere. For kids, it wasn't just adventure, it was a strange introduction to fate, destiny, and sacrifice. It made you wonder, what if your ordinary life hid a cosmic secret? Mighty Max vanished after just a couple of seasons, but that ending, oh, that ending, still lingers like a riddle unsolved. 6. Aeon Flux. Now, if you stayed up too late in the mid-90s flipping channels, you might have stumbled across something strange. Aeon Flux, the show that made you question whether you were dreaming or watching TV. No laugh tracks, no bright colors, just sleek, angular art and silence so thick it almost buzzed. MTV aired it late at night, a time when the world was quiet and teenagers were half awake, hypnotized by its surreal motion. Aeon herself, the secret agent in black leather, moved like liquid metal through dystopian landscapes. Every shot looked hand-drawn from the edge of a fever dream. It didn't explain itself, it didn't need to. People died suddenly, plots reset, meanings shifted. Some nights you'd sit there, cereal long gone soggy, wondering if you missed something, or if you were supposed to. What made Aeon Flux unforgettable wasn't clarity, it was mystery. It treated animation as art, strange, sensual, philosophical art. It whispered instead of shouting. And for those who got it, or at least felt it, it was like being part of a secret club of dreamers. Even now, the sight of rain on neon glass or the echo of foreign city streets might bring it back. That late-night feeling of staring into something far too weird and realizing you kind of loved it. 7. Eek the Cat. You probably remember that purple little furball with the eternal optimism, Eek the Cat. It aired in 1992, and if you caught it back then, you know it was pure Saturday morning energy bottled into 22 minutes of cheerful chaos. The show would start with that wild, jazzy theme song, and you'd instantly be grinning. Eek was always trying to help, always, even when the universe decided to flatten him like a pancake for it. "It never hurts to help," he'd chirp, right before everything exploded. And somehow, even in total disaster, he'd just dust himself off, smile, and keep going. The animation had that soft pastel glow of early 90s TV, like candy-colored mayhem on screen. You could almost hear the squeaky sound effects, feel the clumsy energy of Saturday mornings when your cereal milk splashed everywhere and you didn't care. Behind the slapstick, though, there was something deeply comforting. Eek's endless good nature reminded us of a time when cartoons didn't need to be perfect, just fun. The kind of fun that made you laugh so hard your stomach hurt, even if you didn't get all the jokes. And when you look back, that's what Eek really stood for. Optimism in a world that kept tripping over itself. The kind of spirit we could all use a little more of now. 8. Bonkers. Now this one was peak 90s Disney weirdness. Bonkers D. Bobcat, the overly enthusiastic cartoon cop in a world half real, half animated. Remember that? It felt like someone threw Who Framed Roger Rabbit into a blender, added some jazz saxophone, and hit cartoon chaos. Bonkers was a toon who used to be a star, but when his fame fizzled, he joined the police force because, well, why not? He'd bumble through Hollywood streets chasing villains that looked like they jumped straight out of a candy factory explosion. The human cop who had to partner with him, Lucky Piquel, was all scowls and grumbles, the perfect straight man to Bonkers' bouncing madness. You can almost picture it. The glare of LA sunlight bouncing off cartoon buildings, the smell of coffee and donuts from the police precinct, and Bonkers' goofy grin never fading. The humor was fast, absurd, and relentlessly cheerful. But like so many 90s gems, Bonkers came and went before people realized how clever it was. Behind all the slapstick and sound effects, it was a love letter to classic animation itself. A goofy little celebration of a medium that could mix fantasy and reality without apology. And honestly, every time you hear a sax riff and see an orange cat, there's a part of you that still hears Bonkers shouting, "Toon Justice, here we come!" 9. Freakazoid. Now here was a show that felt like it had eaten a bowl of lightning bolts for breakfast. Freakazoid burst onto screens in 1995. A superhero who was equal parts electric and insane, wrapped in blue spandex and powered entirely by nonsense. Created by the same brilliant folks behind Animaniacs and Batman the Animated Series, it took superhero tropes and turned them upside down, shook the dust out, and laughed the whole time. Freakazoid wasn't just funny, he was meta before we even knew that word. He'd talk to the audience, chase the camera, even interrupt his own story to tell a joke. The show's pace was manic. Blink and you'd miss 3 gags. You could hear the keyboards and modem tones in the background, that unmistakable 90s tech noise that made everything feel high-tech. But underneath the absurdity, there was a weird sort of comfort, a reminder that it was okay to be strange, to be loud, to not fit the mold. For kids sitting cross-legged in front of glowing screens, Freakazoid was a secret handshake, proof that someone out there got our humor, our chaos, our daydreams. It was a cartoon that made you laugh until you snorted milk out your nose, and somehow made you feel a little smarter afterward. It didn't last long, but it didn't have to. Freakazoid zipped in, broke every rule, and left us with one lasting thought. Sometimes the craziest ideas are the most brilliant ones. 10. Exo Squad. Before Gundam ever reached American airwaves, we had Exo Squad, and boy, it was heavy. It wasn't just another action cartoon, it was war, duty, and conscience wrapped in the metallic hiss of battlesuits. The year was 1993, but the story took us centuries ahead. Humans versus their own creations, the Neo-Sapiens, in a rebellion that felt uncomfortably real. Every episode opened with the clank of armor and that unmistakable gear up sequence. Hydraulic sounds that made you feel like you could almost smell the oil and ozone. It had dogfights, moral choices, and characters who died. For a generation raised on slapstick, Exo Squad was the first time a cartoon made us think, wait, this matters. The animation was gritty, the color palette steely and sober, blues, grays, reds, and the writing never talked down to you. You could sense the tension, like the hum of an engine before liftoff.
But maybe that's why it faded. It was too thoughtful, too layered for the Saturday morning crowd. When it vanished, it felt like someone had closed a history book mid-chapter. Yet, if you ever hear the sound of mechanical whirring, there's a part of you that still sees J.T. Marsh's suit firing into the void, fighting not just enemies, but for what's right. 11. ReBoot. There was a time when the net wasn't a thing we lived on, it was a mystery. ReBoot, debuting in 1994, cracked that world open. The first fully computer-generated TV series set inside a computer where sprites and viruses battled for control. The graphics now look blocky, sure, like plastic toys under a neon lamp, but back then, it was magic. You could almost feel the electric buzz, the static thrill of living in a digital universe. Bob, Dot Matrix, Enzo, and the villainous Megabyte weren't just programs, they were pioneers of the pixel age.
Each episode was like opening a new game cartridge, complete with clever nods to the tech of the day. Kids didn't totally understand it, but it felt important, like a glimpse of the future. And the way the show evolved, darker storylines, deeper arcs, made it stand out from the pack. When you watch it now, there's a sweetness in those old CGI lines, a nostalgia for the dawn of the internet itself, when logging in felt like stepping into another universe. ReBoot wasn't just entertainment, it was the future rendered in polygons and dreams. 12. Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars. Now this one, Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, was pure Saturday morning rocket fuel. A green rabbit in a red spacesuit captaining a frigate called the Righteous Indignation. Even the name sounded like something straight off a cereal box prize. Premiering in 1991, it mixed classic Saturday morning color with surprising bite. The evil Toad Empire was a jab at environmental destruction and conformity. Not that we realized it then. We just loved the laser battles, the robot toad soldiers croaking in unison, and that ridiculously catchy theme song, "Let's Croak Us Some Toads." The show's world was vivid, swirling galaxies painted in hand-drawn brilliance, stars twinkling like glitter dust. You could almost smell the metal of the ship's deck, hear the hum of laser cannons charging. And Bucky himself? Brash, brave, and loyal, the kind of hero who'd crack a joke mid-battle but never abandon his crew. Sadly, the show burned bright and brief, canceled before most kids even knew his name. But those who did never forgot it. Even now, when you catch a glimpse of an old comic shop poster or hear the whir of a vintage arcade game, part of you still wants to shout, "I, Captain Bucky," and jump back into the stars. 13. Duckman. You could almost smell the smoke and hear the jazz saxophone the moment Duckman hit the screen. It wasn't a kid's show, oh no, but some of us still caught late-night reruns and thought, what on earth is this? Voiced by Jason Alexander, yes, George from Seinfeld, Duckman was a cynical, overworked private investigator trying to make sense of a world that made none. He wore a tie, no pants, and an attitude that could curdle milk. But behind the sarcasm and the chaos, there was something real. The animation looked jagged, intentionally messy, like it was drawn by someone tapping a nervous foot. The backgrounds buzzed with movement, the jokes came fast and sharp, and the humor was darkly adult but never cruel. What made Duckman special was its honesty. Beneath all the wisecracks was a man, well, Duck, trying to find meaning in the noise. A single dad, burned out, heartbroken, still fighting to care in a world that didn't seem to care back. It was satire with soul, the kind of cartoon that felt like it understood the grown-ups we'd one day become. It may have been too strange for the mainstream, but for those who got it, Duckman became a cult classic, a reflection of life's beautiful absurdity. 14. Courage the Cowardly Dog, early episodes. If you were a kid in 1999, chances are Courage the Cowardly Dog either made you laugh or kept you up at night. Maybe both. The moment that eerie violin theme played, you could feel it, that weird mix of fear and fascination. Set on a lonely farmhouse in nowhere, the show looked like no other. Endless gray skies, pink dust, creaky wooden floors. You could almost smell the dry air and hear the wind whistling past the empty plains. Courage, that small pink dog with trembling paws, faced monsters, aliens, and horrors that adults couldn't see. And he did it all to protect the only family he had. It was funny, yes, the kind of absurd slapstick humor that made you snort milk, but it also hit deep. There was something profoundly human about Courage's fear and his bravery. He showed us that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what you must, even when you're terrified. Those early episodes had grit, the animation grainy, the music uneasy. You could feel the loneliness in every empty horizon. And yet, when Courage hugged Muriel at the end of an episode, it felt safe again. No matter how strange it got, it always brought you back home. 15. Road Rovers. Now this one was a hidden gem, one of those shows that came and went faster than you could say fetch. Road Rovers aired in 1996, a time when talking animals and superhero teams were everywhere. But none were quite like this. Imagine 6 dogs from around the world transformed into crime-fighting heroes. You had Colleen from Britain with her snark, Blitz from Germany with his muscle, and Hunter, the golden retriever leader, always cracking corny jokes. Together, they drove fancy vehicles, wore shiny suits, and barked justice with style. Every episode had that Saturday morning sparkle, over-the-top action, cheesy one-liners, and a heart big enough to wag its tail. The animation was bright, the music bouncy, and the camaraderie genuine. You could practically hear the clatter of paws on metal floors, smell the leather of their hero uniforms, and taste the absurdity in every pun. It wasn't just about fighting villains, it was about loyalty, teamwork, and doing what's right. Beneath the gags and barking orders, there was warmth. The kind of warmth that reminded us why dogs really are man's best friend. It didn't last long. Maybe the world wasn't ready for canine crusaders in spandex, but Road Rovers left behind a paw print that fans still smile about today. 16. Captain Planet and the Planeteers. Cue the drumbeat, the swirling globe, and that unforgettable shout, "The power is yours!" If you grew up in the early 90s, you remember Captain Planet and the Planeteers, a cartoon that didn't just entertain, it educated. Each episode opened with that theme song that felt more like a call to arms. You could see the bright flashes of blue and green, smell the faint ozone of eco-power, and almost feel the rush of the elements: earth, fire, wind, water, heart. It wasn't subtle, but it was sincere. The Planeteers came from around the world, each carrying a ring with power to change nature itself. And when they combined forces, boom! Captain Planet would appear, all teal skin and mullet glory, ready to take down polluters, poachers, and villains with names like Hoggish Greedley. Yeah, it could get a little cheesy, but underneath the catchphrases and the sparkle, there was something pure. The show dared to tell kids, you can change the world. It made recycling bins and endangered species cool long before hashtags did. Even now, hearing that line, "The power is yours," stir something. A little hope, maybe. A reminder of when saving the planet felt like something we could actually do, one cartoon at a time. 17. The Mask animated series. You could almost hear Jim Carrey's manic laughter echoing through the living room when The Mask animated series came on. It hit the air in 1995, right on the heels of the blockbuster movie, and it kept that same zany, rubbery spirit, only now kids could enjoy it without sneaking into a PG-13 theater. The animation popped like a comic book sprung to life. Lime greens, electric yellows, wild expressions that stretched and snapped like elastic. The Mask himself, that bright green alter ego, was chaos personified. He could turn into anything, do anything, say anything. Each episode felt like a Looney Tune on fast forward. The show had that snap of 90s energy, jazz horns, quick jokes, and the cityscape of Edge City buzzing like a cartoon fever dream. But under the laughter, there was heart. Stanley Ipkiss, the mild-mannered everyman behind the mask, was all of us. Just a regular person wishing for a little more color, a little more courage. The mask gave him, and us, that fantasy. The idea that anyone could throw on a little magic and become unstoppable, if only for a moment. And when that catchphrase hit, "Smokin'!" The whole living room lit up. 18. Men in Black, the series. Now here's one that took itself seriously. Men in Black, the series, which landed in 1997, was slick, dark, and smarter than anyone expected. It wasn't just another movie spin-off, it expanded the world in ways the film never had time to. You remember the look, black suits, Ray-Bans, chrome weapons that hummed like they were alive. The animation was sharp, the pacing cinematic. Every episode began with that slow pan through the agency's underground headquarters, rows of glowing tubes, aliens in containment, the hum of high-tech mystery. You could almost feel the chill of the lab air through the screen. Agents J and Pei were back, same swagger, new missions, taking on rogue aliens and cosmic threats with cool professionalism and dry humor. It balanced wit and wonder like few shows did. What made it stand out, though, was its tone. It had weight. The aliens weren't just jokes. They were strange, sometimes sad, sometimes wise. There was a noir undercurrent that made you feel like you were watching something grown up.
It came and went quietly, but for those few seasons, Men in Black the series made us all feel like secret agents. Even now, whenever you see a flash of light or a stranger in sunglasses, part of you wonders if maybe, just maybe, they're about to neuralize you. 19. The Brothers Grunt. Now this one lived in the shadows of the strangest parts of television. The Brothers Grunt aired on MTV in 1994, and it was the kind of show that made your parents walk in, take one look, and say, "What on earth are you watching?" The world of the Brothers Grunt was grotesque, lumpy, sweaty, and drawn in shades of green and beige that looked like someone spilled coffee on the storyboard. The characters grunted, drooled, and mumbled their way through bizarre adventures, and yet you couldn't look away. There was something hypnotic about it. The backgrounds pulsed with odd textures. You could hear the squelch of their skin, smell the stale basement air. It felt like animation made from dreams that shouldn't have escaped the mind. And yet, under all the absurdity, there was a strange kind of humor, that rebellious NTV tone that said, "Yeah, it's weird, that's the point." In an era of polished Saturday morning shows, the Brothers Grunt was a middle finger in animated form, raw, surreal, and unapologetically ugly. It didn't last long, but those who saw it still talk about it like a fever dream. Proof that the 1990s let cartoons get really weird before anyone started labeling art as too strange for TV. 20. Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Ah, late-night brilliance at its finest. Space Ghost Coast to Coast was the kind of show that you stumbled onto after midnight and thought, "Wait, is this real?" It debuted in 1994 on Cartoon Network, and it redefined what a talk show could be. Space Ghost, a washed-up superhero from the 60s, now hosted a talk show in outer space, interviewing real celebrities who clearly had no idea what was happening. His sidekicks, Zorak the Mantis and Moltar the Lava Creature, heckled him mercilessly. The humor, bone-dry. The timing, gloriously awkward. The animation was recycled from old Hanna-Barbera clips, giving it that cut-and-paste, low-budget charm. You could hear the hum of dead air, the static in between jokes, and somehow that was the joke. It was surreal before Adult Swim even existed. For those who caught it, Space Ghost Coast to Coast felt like being part of an inside joke the world wasn't ready for. It turned cringe into comedy, and silence into punchlines. And though most of us didn't understand what we were watching, we felt it, that weird spark of genius hidden in the absurd. It was late-night comfort food for the offbeat minds, and it changed animation forever, one awkward pause at a time. 21. Earthworm Jim. Now, if you ever owned a Sega Genesis or SNES, you already knew Earthworm Jim.
But when the cartoon hit TV in 1995, it became a whole new level of hilarious insanity. Imagine this. A simple earthworm accidentally finds a supersuit from outer space. The show took that absurd premise and said, yes, and let's make it even weirder. From the first scene, you were pulled in. The wobbly, hand-drawn animation bursting with neon colors, the sound of whirring lasers, and Jim's over-the-top voice yelling, "Groovy!" It was slapstick meets science fiction, like a cartoon version of rock and roll. Each episode was a fever dream of talking crows, evil queens, and villains with names like Professor Monkey for a head. The humor came fast, wild, and wonderfully dumb, but that was its genius. It knew it was ridiculous, and it celebrated it. Watching Earthworm Jim was like mainlining imagination. It made you laugh, sure, but it also made you realize how limitless cartoons could be. It said, hey kid, the rules, forget 'em. And even now, if you hear someone shout "groovy" in that booming voice, a little part of your brain lights up, remembering Saturday mornings that were loud, colorful, and joyfully unhinged. 22. The Pirates of Blackwater Bay. You could smell the sea salt before the theme even began. That rolling orchestral swell, like thunder over distant waves. The Pirates of Blackwater Bay felt like a dream you only half remember, painted in dark blues and gold. It took the high-adventure heart of classic pirate tales and gave it a melancholy edge. Ships cut through inky water under storm-gray skies, sails flapping like torn wings. The heroes weren't shiny, they were scarred, weathered, tired, the kind of faces you'd find in an old adventure novel tucked in your granddad's attic. The animation shimmered with hand-drawn care, candlelight glowing in tavern windows, shadows swaying across the deck. You could almost taste the metal tang of salt air and hear the creak of the mast in the wind. For a moment, the 90s gave us a story that felt ancient, part myth, part memory. And then, as if carried off by the tide, it vanished. But every so often, when a late-night movie cuts to a dark sea or a ship bell tolls, you feel it again. That quiet pull of the horizon, and the ghosts of Blackwater Bay whispering their unfinished tale. 23. Widget the World Watcher. If you remember Saturday mornings filled with bright purples and eco-friendly pep talks, then you remember Widget the World Watcher. That little purple alien from 1990 who landed on Earth to teach kids how to take care of it, before going green was even a phrase. The show was soft and earnest, painted in pastel skies and synth-pop melodies that sounded like the future was friendly. Widget could shapeshift into anything to protect the planet. A dolphin, a helicopter, even a tree. And he did it all with a smile that said, "We can fix this." Each episode had that unmistakable early 90s warmth. Moral lessons, gentle humor, and a dose of science tucked between commercials for sugary cereal. You could practically hear the whir of your old ceiling fan as you watched, cereal spoon in hand, learning that even littering was a villain's act. It was simple, yes, but pure. A show that believed in kindness, curiosity, and teamwork, the good stuff. And though it faded quietly into syndication, it left behind something sweet. The idea that maybe saving the world starts small, like picking up one piece of trash at a time. 24. WildCATS. This one was born out of comic book fire and teenage adrenaline. WildCATS from 1994 was the cool older cousin of the superhero cartoons. Darker colors, sharper angles, and that pounding electric guitar intro that made you sit up straight. Based on Jim Lee's hit comic, it followed a band of covert heroes caught in an ancient alien war. The characters looked like they'd stepped straight off a trading card. Big hair, bigger muscles, and enough attitude to fill a warehouse. You could feel the crunch of every punch, the flare of laser blasts lighting up night skies. It was a time when every kid had a stack of comic cards, a backpack covered in patches, and dreams of owning armor like Spartans. The animation was stylish, the storylines surprisingly complex, but the market was crowded, and WildCATS didn't stand a chance against the bigger caped giants. Still, those who caught it remember that rush of music, that sense of something epic just beyond the screen. It was the superhero show that made you feel like you'd discovered a secret, one too cool to last. 25. Samurai Pizza Cats. And then there was Samurai Pizza Cats. If Looney Tunes drank too much soda and crashed headfirst into Power Rangers, you'd get this glorious madness. Premiering in 1990, it followed 3 armor-clad cats, Speedy, Polly, and Guido, who ran a pizza parlor by day and saved their city by night. The English dub? Pure chaos. The translators threw out the script and made up whatever made them laugh. And somehow, it worked. It was fast, funny, and totally bonkers. The announcer cracked jokes, the characters broke the fourth wall, and the humor swung from puns to pure nonsense in seconds. You could hear the clanging of armor, smell the imaginary pizza, feel that sugar rush rhythm that only 90s cartoons had. For kids, it was an explosion of joy, proof that cartoons didn't have to make sense to make you happy. And for adults now looking back, it's a perfect snapshot of that golden era. Messy, colorful, ridiculous, and completely unforgettable. Every time you hear the whir of an old VHS rewinder or the squeal of a Saturday morning theme song, you can almost picture them again, slicing, dicing, and delivering justice with extra cheese. The TV fades to black. The glow that once bathed the living room slowly disappears, and the hum of the old set dies down into silence. But even now, if you close your eyes, you can still hear it. The echo of those theme songs, the laughter, the roar of adventure calling out from the static. Those cartoons weren't just background noise, they were the rhythm of growing up. They were the comfort of a bowl of cereal, the smell of toast in the kitchen, the thump of your sibling racing to the couch before you. They were moments stitched into the fabric of childhood. Pure, unfiltered magic. We didn't realize it then, but those hand-drawn worlds were teaching us how to laugh at ourselves, how to dream bigger, how to find courage even when we were scared. For every hero, every villain, every oddball sidekick, there was a little piece of who we were, tucked inside their stories. And though the screens have changed, flat, sharp, glowing with a different kind of light, the feeling hasn't. We still chase that flicker of wonder, that moment when imagination and comfort meet in a single frame. Maybe that's what nostalgia really is. Not just memory, but connection to who we were, and to everyone who shared those mornings with us. To the smell of dust warming on the TV tubes, to the laughter that filled the house, to the feeling that the world, just for a few hours, was safe and simple and ours. So here's to the forgotten cartoons, to the pirates, the heroes, the ducks, and the dogs. To every artist who dared to be strange, every kid who believed in magic, and every grown-up who still does. Because deep down, we're all still sitting there, cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide, waiting for that screen to flicker back to life. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear it, that familiar voice saying, "Stay tuned."